My Amish sister cried after her wedding night. Years later, I learned why. Amish. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday in early March, slipped between the gas bill and a seed catalog, and I almost set it aside without looking. My name was written in a hand I had not seen in 41 years. Rebecca Yoder, it said. Though I had not been a Yoder since 1986, I was 63 years old, standing at the kitchen counter of a small house outside Millersburg, and the moment I recognized that handwriting, I had to sit down on the stool beside the refrigerator because my knees would not hold me. The envelope was thin. There was no return address. Inside was a single folded page and, behind it, a square of pale blue cotton, no larger than my palm, the edges hemmed by hand. I knew that cloth. I had last seen it on the morning after my sister Martha's wedding, balled in her fist as she sat on the washhouse floor and cried so hard she could not breathe. I want to tell you what happened that morning, and what happened in the years afterward, and what that little square of blue cloth finally explained to me when I was old enough to understand it. But first you should know that in the community where I grew up, in a settlement in northern Indiana, a bride did not cry after her wedding. She might cry before, from nerves. She might cry during the singing, but the morning after, she was expected to come down the stairs of her parents' house, with her hair pinned smooth, pour coffee for the visiting relatives, and behave as though something natural and ordinary had occurred. My sister Martha did not do that. My sister Martha was found by me, just after dawn, in the washhouse behind our father's barn, sitting on the cement floor in her nightdress, with her feet bare and a piece of blue cloth pressed against her mouth. She was 19. I was 15. The man she had married the day before was named Aaron Byler, and he was 24, and everyone in our district had said it was a good match. His family owned the harness shop on the corner of County Road 600. Our father had no sons living, only Martha and me, and a baby brother buried in 1969, and the Bylers had 4. People had been saying for over a year that the Lord had arranged this marriage himself. I believed it too. I had stood beside Martha during the ceremony in our uncle's barn, and watched her say the words in a voice so quiet only the bishop could hear them, and I had thought she was simply being a proper bride, modest, soft-spoken, the way our mother had taught us to be. I never told anyone what I saw in the washhouse, not my mother, not the bishop, not Martha herself. By the time she noticed me standing in the doorway, she had already pressed the cloth into her lap and wiped her face with the back of her wrist. She said, "Go back to bed, Rebecca." She said it the way our mother said things when there was no room for questions. I went. I lay in the bed we used to share, the bed she had left the morning before in her white apron, and I listened to the wind in the eaves, and I tried to convince myself that brides sometimes cried, and that it meant nothing. That was the first lie I told myself about my sister. It would not be the last. I am sitting at my kitchen table now, in March of this year, with the envelope opened in front of me. The letter inside is short. It is written by a woman named Esther Lapp, whose name I do not recognize. She writes that she is 67 years old, and lives in a community in Wisconsin, and that she has been carrying something that belongs to my family since 1983. She writes that she was Aaron Byler's first cousin, and that she was at the wedding, and that she wishes she had spoken sooner. She asks if I would be willing to call her. There is a phone number at the bottom, the kind that belongs to a shed phone, the kind a plain woman might walk to once a week to receive a message. The blue cloth, she writes, was given to her by Martha 3 months before Martha died, with instructions that it should be sent to me when Esther judged the time was right. Esther writes that she is sorry it has taken her 41 years to judge the time. Martha died in 1984. She was 23. The community said it was a fever. I will tell you what I came to believe instead, but I am getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back. Back to the summer before Martha was married, when she was 18 and I was 14, and we were still sharing the upstairs bedroom in our father's house. Martha was the prettier of us, though no one in our community would have used that word out loud. She had a steadiness about her, a way of folding laundry that made the stacks look like they belonged in a store window. She had been baptized that spring. She was being courted by Aaron Byler, who came on Sunday evenings in a black buggy with red wheels, and she was, I thought, happy. There was one evening in July when I came down the stairs barefoot for a glass of water, and I heard voices in the kitchen. Martha was sitting at the table. Our mother was standing at the stove with her back turned. Martha was saying something I could not quite hear, and our mother said, in a voice I will never forget, "You will not say that again, Martha. Not to me, and not to anyone. You will marry him in November, and you will be a good wife, and you will not speak of it again." I stood very still on the stairs. I heard Martha begin to cry, very quietly, the way she had been taught to cry, with no sound. Then I heard our mother say, more gently, "It is the same for all of us, daughter. It was the same for me. You will learn." I went back upstairs without my water. The next morning, Martha braided my hair for church and did not mention any of it, and I did not ask. I was 14. I did not know what she had been trying to tell our mother. I only knew that whatever it was, our mother had decided the answer was no. I am going to leave the past for a moment and return to the kitchen table, because I want to tell you what happened after I read Esther's letter. I sat there for a long time with the blue cloth in my hand. I held it up to the light, and I saw what I had not been able to see in the dim washhouse 41 years ago. The cloth was not a handkerchief. It was a piece cut from something larger, hemmed carefully on all four sides, as though Martha had wanted it preserved. In one corner, in tiny cross-stitch the color of dried blood, were 3 letters. M, then a small heart, then E. Not A for Aaron, E. I did not know an E. I sat at the table until the kettle on the stove began to whistle, and then I let it whistle, and then I got up and turned it off and put on my coat and walked the half-mile to the phone shanty at the end of our lane. I called the number on Esther's letter. A woman answered on the 4th ring. When I said my name, she was quiet for a long moment, and then she said, "Oh, Rebecca, I have been waiting since 1983 to hear your voice. I want to tell you what Esther told me on that phone call, but I owe you the rest of the story first, because I did not understand what she was telling me until I put it beside everything I already knew." Martha married Aaron Byler in November of 1982. The wedding was held in our uncle's barn, as I said. There were 312 guests. My mother had cooked for a week. I wore a dark blue dress that Martha had sewn for me, and I stood at the corner of the bride's table during the meal and watched my sister eat almost nothing. Aaron sat beside her and made polite conversation with the men across from him. He did not look at her often. I remember thinking that was proper, that a new husband should not stare at his wife in front of the church, but I also remember that he did not look at her even when she spoke. When she asked him to pass the bread, he passed it without turning his head. That night, after the singing, Martha and Aaron went upstairs in our father's house, because that was the custom in our district. The new couple stayed with the bride's family for the first night, and moved to their own home the following week. I slept downstairs on a cot in the sewing room, because Martha's room had become their room. I did not hear anything. I want to be clear about that. I did not hear voices raised. I did not hear weeping through the floorboards. I did not hear any of the things a story might want me to have heard. The house was quiet. The wind moved in the eaves. I fell asleep around midnight. I woke before dawn because I had to use the outhouse. On the way back, I saw a light in the washhouse. That is where I found her. In the months that followed, Martha did what was expected of her. She moved into the small house Aaron's family had prepared on a piece of their land. She kept it spotlessly. She cooked, she gardened. She came to church every other Sunday with her hair pinned smooth and her hands folded. She did not have a child in the first year, which people noticed but did not yet remark upon. She did not have a child in the second year either. By the 3rd year, our mother had begun to bring it up at family suppers, and Martha would simply look down at her plate and say, "In the Lord's time." I was 17 by then, and I had begun to watch my sister with a different kind of attention. She had grown thinner, not dramatically, just enough that her dresses hung differently. She laughed less, but she had never laughed much, so it was easy to miss. The thing I noticed most was that she had stopped meeting my eyes. When I came to visit her on Saturday afternoons, she would set out tea and bread and sit across from me at her kitchen table, and she would talk about the garden and the chickens and the weather, and she would look at my hands or my collar, or the window behind me, but never my face. Once, when I asked her if she was happy, she answered without looking up. She said, "I am where I am supposed to be, Rebecca." That is not the same thing. I thought she meant she was tired. I thought she meant marriage was harder than girls were told. I went home, and I told myself she would settle, The way our mother had said brides settle. I rationalized it. I was 18. I wanted to believe her life was difficult in an ordinary way. In the spring of 1984, Martha came down with a fever. That is what the community said, and that is what was written in the family records. She was sick for 9 days. Aaron's mother nursed her. Our mother was permitted to visit twice. I was permitted to visit once, on the 7th day, and what I remember from that visit is that Martha's eyes were clear, not feverish, and that she held my hand very tightly and whispered, "Tell me you will not let them marry you to someone you do not know. Tell me, Rebecca." I told her. I promised her. She closed her eyes, and she did not open them again while I was in the room. She died 2 days later. The funeral was held on a Friday. She was buried in the small cemetery behind the meeting house, and a stone was set for her, and the community brought food to our mother's house for a week, and life went on. I left the community a year and a half later. I was 19. I had not yet been baptized. I told my parents I needed time, and my father did not speak to me for the rest of his life, and my mother wrote me 3 letters over the next 30 years, all of them brief, all of them ending with the same sentence: "We pray you will come home." I never went home. I married a Mennonite man named Daniel Yoder, who worked at a furniture shop in Holmes County, and we had 2 daughters, and I became, slowly, the woman I am now. I thought about Martha every day, every single day, but I told myself the story I had been given. She had married a quiet man. She had not been able to have children. She had taken a fever and died young. It was a sad story, but it was a closed story. I told myself this for 41 years. Now I want to tell you what Esther said on the telephone. Esther said that Aaron Byler did not want to marry my sister. Esther said that Aaron Byler had been in love, since he was 17 years old, with a young man named Eli Hochstetler, who worked alongside him in the harness shop. She said this plainly, in the careful voice of a woman who had practiced saying it for many years. She said that Aaron's father had discovered the 2 of them in the shop's back room in the summer of 1982, and that within a week, a marriage had been arranged for Aaron, with the most respectable girl in the district, who was my sister Martha. She said that Eli had been sent away to a community in Pennsylvania. She said that Martha had been told the truth, the full truth, 3 days before the wedding, by Aaron himself, in a conversation he had asked Esther to witness, because he did not want to be alone with what he had to say. Esther said that Martha had listened without crying, that Martha had asked only one question. The question was, "Will you be kind to me?" And Aaron had said, "I will try." Esther said that on the wedding night, nothing happened between them. Esther said that Martha had told her, weeks later, that they had sat on opposite sides of the bed in their wedding clothes until almost dawn, and that they had agreed, the 2 of them, to a kind of partnership. They would live as husband and wife in the eyes of the community. They would be kind to each other. They would not speak of Eli, and they would not speak of what Martha had wanted for her own life, which Esther said had been to become a school teacher in a settlement out west, where she had a cousin who would have taken her in. Martha had given that up. Aaron had given up Eli. They were going to try. The blue cloth, Esther said, had been cut from a shirt of Eli's that Aaron had kept, folded, in the bottom of a trunk. Martha had found it in the 2nd year of their marriage. She had not been angry. She had cut a small piece from it, and hemmed it, and embroidered it with M, and a heart, and E, because she said, to Esther, that she wanted to remember that there had been love somewhere in their house, even if it had not belonged to her. The fever, Esther said, had not been a fever. Martha had taken something from the medicine cabinet in Aaron's mother's house. Esther did not know exactly what. Esther said that Aaron had found her, and that Aaron had not called the doctor in time, because he had been afraid of what the doctor would ask. Esther said that Aaron had lived with that until 1991, when he had walked into a pond in February, and not walked out. The community had called that an accident too. I sat in the phone shanty for a long time after Esther stopped talking. The receiver was warm against my ear. Outside, a car went past on the road, and a crow called from the field, and the world continued to be the world. I thanked Esther. I told her I would write to her. I walked home along the lane with the blue cloth in my coat pocket, and my hand around it. This is what I understand now, sitting at my table on a Tuesday in March, that I did not understand at 15, or 17, or even at 50. My sister did not cry on her wedding night, because something cruel had been done to her in that room. My sister cried because nothing had been done, because she had spent the night sitting across from a man who could not love her, and she had agreed to spend the rest of her life that way, and she had done it not because anyone forced her with their hands, but because everyone she loved had decided, in a kitchen one July evening, that this was what good daughters did. Our mother had known. I am almost certain of that now. Our mother had told her, "You will learn." Our mother had meant, I learned too. I do not know what my mother gave up. I will never know. She is buried beside my father in the cemetery behind the meeting house, 3 rows from Martha. I went last week, for the first time in 40 years. I brought the blue cloth. I did not leave it there. I brought it home. I keep it now in the drawer of my bedside table, beside my reading glasses, and the small notebook where I have begun, slowly, to write down what I remember of my sister. Not the closed story, the real one. I am writing it for my daughters, who never met their aunt, and for myself, because I think I owe Martha that much. I think I owe her a record that does not call it a fever. There is one thing more I want to say, and then I will stop. When I asked Esther, on the phone, why she had waited 41 years, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I was afraid you would not want to know." I told her she had been wrong about that, but only barely. There was a part of me, even at 63, that wished the envelope had stayed between the gas bill and the seed catalog. There is a kind of peace in believing the story you were given. It is not the same as peace, but it resembles it from a distance. I chose to know. I am telling you because I think Martha would have wanted someone, somewhere, to hear it without flinching. She spent 4 years and 4 months as Aaron Byler's wife, and she was kind to him, and he was kind to her, and they were both, in the end, destroyed by the same silence. The blue cloth is the only thing in my house that knew them both. I take it out sometimes in the evenings. I run my thumb over the small embroidered heart between the M and the E, and I think about how my sister, who was not permitted to love the life she wanted, made room in her grief for someone else's love anyway. That was Martha. That was always Martha. I did not understand it on the morning I found her in the wash house. I understand it now. The kettle is whistling again. I will get up and turn it off. I will pour the tea. I will sit at this table, where my sister never sat, in this house she never saw, and I will keep writing down what I remember, one quiet sentence at a time, until the story she was not allowed to tell belongs, at last, to someone who is willing to carry it.